Chapter 7. What is a rainbow? The Epic of Gilgamesh is one of the oldest stories ever written. Older than the legends of the Greeks or the Jews, it is the ancient heroic myth of the Sumerian civilization which flourished in Mesopotamia, now Iraq, between 5,000 and 6,000 years ago. Gilgamesh was the great hero king of Sumerian myth, a bit like King Arthur in British legends, in that nobody knows whether he actually existed, but lots of stories were told about him. Like the Greek hero Odysseus, Ulysses, and the Arabian hero Sinbad the sailor, Gilgamesh went on epic travels, and he met many strange things and people on his journeys. One of them was an old man, a very, very old man, centuries old, called Utnapishtim, who told Gilgamesh a strange story about himself. Well, it seemed strange to Gilgamesh, but it may not seem so strange to you because you have probably heard a similar story about another old man with a different name. Utnapishtim told Gilgamesh of an occasion many centuries earlier when the gods were angry with humankind because we made so much noise they couldn't sleep. The chief god, Enlil, suggested that they should send a great flood to destroy everybody so the gods could get a good night's rest. But the water god, E, decided to warn Utnapishtim. E told Utnapishtim to tear down his house and build a boat. It would have to be a very big boat because Utnapishtim was to take into it the seed of all living creatures. Utnapishtim built the boat just in time before it rained for 6 days and 6 nights without stopping. The flood that followed drowned everybody and everything that was not safely inside the boat. On the 7th day, the wind dropped and the waters grew calm and flat. Utnapishtim opened a hatch in the tightly sealed boat and released a dove. The dove flew away looking for land, but failed to find any and returned. Then Utnapishtim released a swallow, but the same thing happened. Finally, Utnapishtim released a raven. The raven didn't come back, which suggested to Utnapishtim that there was dry land somewhere and the raven had found it. Eventually, the boat came to rest on a mountaintop poking out of the water. Another god, Ishtar, created the first rainbow as a token of the god's promise to send no more terrible floods. So that is how the rainbow came into being, according to the ancient legend of the Sumerians. Well, I said this story would be familiar. All children reared in Christian, Jewish, or Islamic countries will immediately recognize that it is the same as the more recent story of Noah's Ark, with 1 or 2 minor differences. The name of the boat builder changes from Utnapishtim to Noah. The many gods of the older legend turn into the one God of the Jewish story. The seed of all living creatures becomes spelled out as every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort, or as the song has it, the animals went in 2 by 2, and the Epic of Gilgamesh surely meant something similar. In fact, it is obvious that the Jewish story of Noah is nothing more than a retelling of the older legend of Utnapishtim. It was a folk tale that got passed around, and it traveled down the centuries. We often find that seemingly ancient legends have come from even older legends, usually with some names or other details changed. And this one, in both versions, ends with the rainbow. In both the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Book of Genesis, the rainbow is an important part of the myth. Genesis specifies that it was actually God's bow, which he put up in the sky as a token of his promise to Noah and his descendants. There is one more difference between the Noah story and the earlier Sumerian tale of Utnapishtim. In the Noah version, the reason for God's discontent with humans was that we were all incurably wicked. In the Sumerian story, humanity's crime was, you might think, less serious. We simply made so much noise the gods couldn't get to sleep. I think it's funny. And the theme of noisy humans keeping the gods awake crops up, quite independently, in the legend of the Chumash people of Santa Cruz Island off the coast of California. The Chumash people believed that they were created on their island. It obviously wasn't called Santa Cruz then, because that is a Spanish name, from the seeds of a magic plant by the earth goddess Hutash, who was married to the sky snake, what we know as the Milky Way, which you can see on a really dark night in the country, but not if you live in a town where there is too much light pollution. The people of the island became very numerous and, just as in the Epic of Gilgamesh, too noisy for the goddess Hutash's comfort. The racket kept her awake at night. But instead of killing them all, like the Sumerian and Jewish gods, Hutash was kinder. She decided that some of them must move off Santa Cruz onto the mainland where she wouldn't be able to hear them. So she made a bridge for them to cross by. And the bridge was, yes, the rainbow. This myth has a strange ending. As the people were crossing over the rainbow bridge, some of the noisy ones looked down, and they were so frightened by the drop that they got dizzy. They fell off the rainbow into the sea, where they turned into dolphins. The idea of the rainbow as a bridge crops up in other mythologies too. In Old Norse Viking myths, rainbows were seen as fragile bridges used by the gods to travel from the sky world to Earth. Many peoples, for example in Persia, West Africa, Malaysia, Australia, and the Americas, have seen the rainbow as a large snake which soars out of the ground to drink the rain. How do all these legends start, I wonder? Who makes them up, and why do some people eventually come to believe these things really happened? These questions are fascinating and not easy to answer. But there's one question we can answer. What is a rainbow really?